I was going to try and do a thing where I popped up, but then the damn camera tilted. 2, 3, 4. Did it, ba, did, do. Did it, do. Ba da 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 da. It's Wednesday. Ha ha he. I'll try it next week. If I'm feeling it. I don't want to force anything, obviously. Hey, everybody. My name is Jimmy. I went to the comic book store today. Picks of the week. Kind of a light week this week, which is fine. I have more than enough reading material to last me a lifetime. I realized that, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I realized this year that if I live to be 100, I will never read all the books that I have to read, that I own, that I have not yet read. So, it's a good thing I bought some more today. Speaking of which, well, I didn't buy this one. This is Bloodshot, the free comic book day edition for 2020. Got a photograph of Mr. T, or whoever the hell action star that is. Valiant 2020, the year of heroes. No, that's an interesting take on this year. Sure. I don't know who's doing this. I haven't read. Bloodshot is a favorite of mine. I like Bloodshot. The last series I bought, I believe, was either written by Dwayne Swarczynski or Jeff Lemire, and it wasn't that long ago. It was since I've been in this apartment for sure, so that would be within the last 2.5 years. There is a current Bloodshot series which I have not yet started to read, and I've been kind of trade waiting on, but I haven't yet bought any of the trades. This isn't what I... The reason I was even mentioning this, though, is because it's Free Comic Book Day is traditionally the first Saturday in May, traditionally since whenever it started, 10 years ago or something. And obviously, for this year, they were unable to have a traditional Free Comic Book Day, where a bunch of children and old people crowd into a room for something for nothing, which is the American dream after all. So what they've decided to do, I think they must have already had all the stuff printed up, which would make sense because it's in May, so that means that the solicits will go out in March. Yeah, so they probably had either everything was published by the time the pandemic struck, or was going to the printer. So what they've decided, what all the publishers apparently have decided to do, is to do it more like a free comic book month. And so every week, or free comic book summer, sorry. So every week this summer, I guess starting in July, they've been giving free comic books away. So this is one of the 3 or 4 I got today. I don't know what, I mean, some stores, differ, like they'll only let you take 1 or 3 or whatever. I think my shop, and it was true when I used to work at a shop, I just took them all because I worked there. But yeah, yappity yap. Also, I did see this movie out at the Mission Tiki Drive-In out in beautiful Montclair, California. And I love going to the drive-in. It's the only option I have for going to the movies now. It's kind of a far drive, but that gives me more time to sing along with the stereo, which is really all my whole day is just trying to get singing along with the stereo time. And it wasn't bad, but the thing about the drive-in is when it's a very dark movie, like it's not very well lit, it's hard to see outside. If you're watching THX 1138, that's different, but I've not done that in a drive-in. None of this has anything to do with anything. You know what? The world's ending. Who cares? Also, this week, I bought this Villains 100-page giant. This is a couple months old. I'm not sure when it came out. And I've probably mentioned this a few times, but I've been reading a lot of these 100-page giants that DC's been doing these last 6 months or so, I want to say. Probably since the turn of this year. And they're so much fun. This one is just a one-shot, I believe. Like the Batman and the Superman ones, those are there's 4 of most of these now. But this one is just the one. Same with Ghosts. They did a Ghosts one-shot. But yeah, it's got the Joker who doesn't enjoy his work. And then, your Deathstrokes, your Darkseids. Yeah, it'll be fun. And, like I say, it's kind of a light week. And light in that it was mostly Marvel again. And it was all Marvel titles that I've talked about recently, so who gives a poop. Here is the biggest title, though. This is not just a fluke pick of the week, even though a lot of spine damage. Not into that right off the top. This is Chew #1 from the Image publisher. This is written by John Layman and drawn by Dan Boltwood, and it is a sequel to the comic book Chew, which was spelled Chew, and was the adventures of an FDA agent in the not-too-distant future when poultry has been outlawed. And it's as silly as it sounds. It's also way more badass than it sounds. I can't recommend it enough. The series ended a while ago. It was a series from the aughts, I think, right? Oh, yeah, I think it started like '06 and probably wrapped up before the decade's end. I don't know anything about this, which is how I like things. Rob Guillory, who drew the original series, is clearly not back on drawing duties here, although this does look like his cover. A little roll in the spine. I also like Image has these things. Our comeback will be bigger than our setback. Hashtag back the comeback. Publishers are, I mean, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but, you know, comic book stores are obviously getting hit pretty hard by, what is it? Pandemic? More importantly, where's the Picks of the Week sign? Who gives a shit? Oh, there it is. Comic shops are getting hit pretty hard by this whole pandemic, so it's really it is really something like Image is really trying to push forward all the small publishers, obviously, because their comic book stores are their lifeline. I mean, eventually all brick and mortar stores will be gone, and we'll all just work for Amazon. We'll all just live in Amazon warehouses, like the company store, you know, the way God intended. But until then, these small publishers need comic book stores, and they need happy retailers, because happy retailers will read their books, and then, you know, if they like them, then they'll push them onto their customers, and everyone's more happy. Because there's not, I mean, I'm a discerning consumer, so I look for this sort of shit, but for that sort of, like, you know, smaller press stuff. And even like Marvel, you know, retailers were like, hey, do not flood us with a bunch of books. And Marvel was like, you got it, you know, we'll roll Empire out slowly. And then, of course, 4 goddamn Empire books came out today, but still. Anyway, that was Picks of the Week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Now, Picks of last week. Da-da-dee-dee-dee-doo. I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm not saying this like in a negative way, but since books have come back weekly, which has been a few months now, there has been a ton of stuff that's really rocked my world. I mean, even that new Boys series is really good, but it's not really kicking my butt. So I don't know if that's because of the pandemic. And also because, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm depressed as all hell lately. So maybe that's also got something to do with it. I don't know. But what I will say is these books were very good. But I honestly don't remember that much about them. All right, so first up was Sacred Six. Now, this was very Christopher Priest-y, which is what I was hoping for. I did want to show you, because he does this one thing. He does it a lot in Deathstroke. I think he did it a lot in Black Panther. I want to say that's where he kind of started doing it, but he does this. So you'll have panel, and then he'll have like a caption panel. Panther, the town of... You know, it's like a little title card that'll pop up, and I love that. I don't know what it is about that. Priest does it a lot, and when Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti were doing their incredible Jonah Hex series, which was also from the aughts, it's pre-New 52 DC. Cannot recommend that enough. Jonah Hex, Justin Gray, and Jimmy Palmiotti, incredible stuff. But and they had a similar gimmick that they would do in that book. I don't remember a whole lot else about the book. It is, it's all, you know, out of the Vampirella universe in the Warren comics, which I'm just not very familiar with. So it's really difficult for me to give you any kind of insight as to whether it's good or not. Also, I read Year Zero, number 3. This continues to be super fun. If you've read, I hope I mentioned this. I don't know if you've ever read World War Z by Max Brooks. It's a novel. It's written in the oral history form, oral tradition, whatever. So it's like a group of interviews, and it's all about the zombie apocalypse, and it is an incredible book. I never saw the movie because it looked awful, and from what I heard it was, but the book is far and away super good. And Year Zero really has that vibe. It's all being told, the zombie apocalypse story is all being told from the point of view of a small boy, like a Mexican street urchin in Mexico City. Another point of view is a Muslim woman in Afghanistan. Her and like some other women were being human trafficked. And so the U.S. military shows up and frees them, but then they become zombies. So now it's just these poor women versus all these zombies in Afghanistan. It's incredible. Like that sort of thing. Oh, and then the really cool one. I hate when people say, oh, it's so cool, but in this case it really is. Like cool sounds like, what are you, an 8th grader? Tell me why it's good. I'll tell you why this is good. One of the characters is hitman for the Yakuza. So we get more of his backstory because he's on a mission of revenge against his boss. So it's like this super badass, and he's just killing zombies. Like, and that's the thing is, all these zombies pop up in Tokyo, and he's like, "Well, all right, I'll just kill all these guys." Like, he's so tunnel visioned. It's so cool. That's one of my favorite things about like Japanese crime fiction, is that the characters are super, like, like American stuff, like the Parker novels and stuff like that. Those guys are all, I love that stuff, but this Yakuza guy is something else. And then speaking of badasses, of course, we had Giant Size X-Men #1, Magneto. This was a really fun story and it was where Magneto's obviously the star of the book, but Prince Namor, the Submariner, and Emma Frost, the White Queen, both play pretty big parts in it. And so you get those three characters, and and it's like written by Jonathan Hickman, who's got a real good ear for characters' dialogue. Like, it's not flashy, kind of like how Bendis kind of is sometimes, but it is really, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but they all speak in these sorts of regal tones, and they kind of speak codedly, and Emma is always calling people darling, and it's very, highfalutin for a funny book, especially. All right, let's pick the last lead. All right. I don't have anything. I've been trying to read more books too, aside from the funny books. Although I am definitely going to tear into that Len Wein trade paperback that I bought, or trade hardcover that I bought at the beginning of the quarantine. I did read this novel this week that I cannot recommend enough. It's called Subcutanean, Subcuteanen, something like that. And it's a horror novel, and I read it on Kindle, and I'm in a book club, whatever. So as we read it for our book club, and the kind of the gimmick. So the story is, it's about these two college kids in like the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and they discover underneath one of their beds is a staircase going down. So they go down, and they find this huge basement that just keeps sprawling like labyrinthianly. And it gets weirder from there. The hook to the whole thing, though, is that no two copies of the book are alike. So that's not entirely true. So the way it works is that when someone orders the book online, they print you up a new copy, which is kind of standard for small press these days. That's how my novel was, print to order, or whatever the hell they call it. But there's I don't know how exactly, but it's like a randomized program that'll spit out just slightly different versions. Still the same basic story, I guess, but slightly different versions. When I finished the version I read, because there's like two that you can just buy on Kindle, which is what I did because I'm a dum-dum. But once I finished it said a thing in the back says, send this passcode to this email and we'll send you another copy, a different one, so you can compare. So even though I only paid for the one, I get the extra one. And man, it scared the pants off me on top of that too, because there's a lot of, it turns in, it's like an alternate dimension type story. And that sort of thing always just sets my imagination running, and then bye, I won't be seeing that again for a while. That sort of thing scares the poop out of me. That was why I love the Twilight Zone so much, and still do, because of stuff like that, where during the end credits, I'm like, but if that stopwatch is broken, then he's frozen there. Everyone's frozen, but he's not. Like, it freaks me out, and that was a similar thing. So I recommend it, Subcutanean, by an author of some repute. I can't remember his name. Aaron Milner, I want to say, something like that. Subcutanean. I can't say it often enough. Maybe before I upload it, I'll look it up and put another thing. All right, that's enough out of me. I went to obedience school, and they taught me to do that to shut me up. It doesn't work very well. Okay. What a silly Billy. All right, that's it. Ba-da-dee-da-dee-da-da. Ba.